Welcome everybody to another episode of Balls in Your Face Marketing. Today I am joined by an amazing guest, Fraser Cameron. He is the founder of his own coaching program called EPICDADS. I was impressed to see that you've been running that since 2013, and you're also a sprint coach since 1998. So you've been doing your own thing for some time here.
Makes me feel pretty old. Look, so I was a sprinter myself and fell into the coaching side because I loved helping people to be better versions of themselves in terms of as sprinters. Never once did it for money. It was always a passion. And then got back into it in later life. I still compete now at 41. But the coaching thing is, the actual coaching thing, which is coaching dads, has been the ability to combine my passion with something that I know I'm really good at, with skills that I have. And it's drastically changed my life and my family's life. And now I get to help other dads go through the same thing, which is kind of a massive win-win from my perspective. That's
outstanding. Yeah, I don't know. And it's funny, it's very interesting progression that I see people do that once they achieve success. And I had this great conversation with a gentleman named Jim Still. Basically, he certainly had that attitude that, with success comes responsibility. And exactly that. A lot of people, like yourself, they achieve a certain level and then they just want to teach other people. And I think it's a very noble and great and fulfilling way to live your life.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word fulfilling, and I think that to me is key. It's taking that leap from success to fulfillment, because success is generally something that's typically defined by society, the 2.4 kids, the white picket fence and everything else like that, right? But I had that and I was miserable, which is what prompted my journey with EPICDADS. I was miserable, right? Whereas now it's more about fulfillment. It's doing what I want to do, when I want to do it, with who I want to do it with, and how I want to do it, right? So it's that whole gambit. And I think you're very right. With that comes responsibility. And when you get that feeling all day, every day, you want other people out there, especially from my perspective, dads, to have that same feeling all day, every day, because everyone benefits from it. So yeah, my mission is to help 1 million dads become truly epic by 2020. So it's pretty out there. My coaches, all coaches have coaches, or should have coaches, push me to really set that bar high. And they're not all going to be via one-to-one, but it's people that listen to podcasts like this. It's people that read posts. It's people that are influenced by watching what someone else does. So it's like, it really becomes like obsession's the wrong word, but it really becomes such a passionate thing that you want to live it all day, every day, and you want to be able to empower and enable others to do the same.
Yeah. No, hey, well, look, I'm a father myself, and I've been finding it really, exciting and fulfilling. I get to kind of help my kids get ready in the morning. I kind of stop my day, around the 3:30ish or so to get them off the bus, to get their dinner ready, that kind of a thing. My wife is off at her job, so I get a little time with them. And exactly, it goes back like maybe half a year ago. I had this sort of revelation of, why am I doing 9 to 5? Why? I don't need to. I can spend cut out those times to work around my kids' schedule, and then do some work in the evening after they've gone to bed and stuff like that. And in fact, in this global economy, where I'm talking to people like yourself, I don't know what time it is where you are now.
5 o'clock in the evening in France.
Well, there you go, right? And it's 11 a.m. for me. So this is the thing, is that, I'm talking with people in Asia, in Australia, all over the world. Time zones are completely different. So in fact, having that flexibility in my schedule has worked very well for both my life, my personal life, and my business. So I think it's a great message. And it's really cool, I think, by the way, too, that you have, even if, however ambitious, maybe even if it's not realistic, that you have a very clear, defined mission statement.
I think so. It has to be measurable, even though you can argue mine's hard to measure because you're not directly touching everybody and influencing everyone. But it's got to be measurable, and it's got to be something you can share with people so other people buy into that as well. And it has to be stretched. Like, if I get a quarter of the way towards that target, it's still a massive achievement, right? So but if I set a low target, then I will procrastinate, I will make excuses, I will cruise, I will do all the things that I promised myself I wouldn't do. So it's got to be big. And you talk about your journey, and it really is awesome to hear that, because I think conventional wisdom has so much to answer for. This image that society tells us that we have to do 9 to 5, that we have to work hard so we can provide for our families and so we can retire and die. And it's literally bullshit. And the reason for it is because we have to live now. You don't get time with your kids when they're younger a second time. You get it once, right? You've got to make the most of it. You've got to influence them and show them how to create new possible, so they go off and do it themselves. And so we then get generation after generation doing amazing things, right? And then we all win. So it doesn't have to be the grind till you die thing. It can be, well, actually, now I want to live right now. And yes, you may make some financial compromises. You may not earn as much as if you're working twice as many hours, but to me, the payoff is you actually get to spend time with your children. Like you do the school run, and that stuff's golden. The little nuggets that the kids come out with on the way home from school, you get to experience that, and that's priceless, right? You can't put a value on that.
No, you can't, and it's amazing that this isn't the conventional wisdom, because I mean, all my life I have spoken to an older generation, and if you talk about what could they have done differently, invariably they almost always say, I wish I had spent more time with my kids. I wish I enjoyed that time more.
Completely. Look, I watched an amazing documentary about 4 or 5 years ago, which really gave me the kick in my butt I needed to make my journey a reality. And it was about a group of gentlemen in an old people's home. They're in their 80s and 90s. And one of them was asked what his 5 biggest regrets were in life. And he said, I've only got one. And it's as simple as this. He said, I didn't live the life I wanted to live. Right? So he lived the life he thought he should. He had the long hours in the job to provide for his family. And he said, I'm here alone. He said, none of my kids want to come and see me because they didn't have a relationship with me because I was never there. He was doing what he thought he should do, not what he wanted to do. So he said, everyone watching this, go and do what you want to do now. Don't put it off, because you will be alone in the old people's home when you're 90. Yeah. And it's a really powerful message, right? Because you're right. That generation's been telling us this for the last 60 years and saying that it was their biggest regret. Yet we continue the cycle of going back in and doing it again. And it doesn't have to be that way. I talk to so many dads who go, oh, I just don't have the time. I'm doing this. I'm providing for my family. And I'm like, your family need you. They need you more than anything else. Yes, you need shelter and clothing and food and all those, but those are quite basic needs that are never as complex and never as hard to get as what we think, right? Yeah. But they need you. They need their dads. How many stories do you have of broken men that missed out on time with their dad, or missed out on having that male figure to learn from? When are we going to learn as a society that it's not the right way? Right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was reading this article the other day about some woman who had done some study researching the last sort of 26 school shootings, or 27 of them. 26 of those 27 were missing a father in the home.
I'm not surprised. Are you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, without a doubt, every child is dependent on their mother at a certain age. But without a question, as far as I'm concerned, after a certain age, both fathers and mothers, I think, are very, very important to their upbringing.
Totally. And I hear all the excuses that'll come out now. I just can't afford it. I don't have the time. My work requires me to do this. And they are just excuses. As hard as that is to hear, they are just excuses, because you can control what you do. And I'll tell you, I'll be really blunt here. Look, I'm sitting here in the southwest of France. I work 3 to 4 hours a day in the morning when the kids are doing a little bit of homeschool, because we've got language challenges to overcome before they go to school here. And then I do a little bit of work in the evenings, because when I'm talking to people like you in America, it's convenient time in the evenings to talk to them. And I'm living my dream. And I will be honest, I'm nothing special. I'm just a small town boy from a small country right down the bottom end of the world where no one really knows where it is, other than the fact that they think we're all Australians. And so it's really possible, right? It's not as hard or as complex as we think it is. It's all a matter of going, right, this is what I want. This is what's important to me. Stripping away all the unnecessary stuff around the outside and building a life around that. And just talking to you, you've clearly set some things in place that's enabled you to do that as well. And it really is simple, right? It's a choice, and then taking action to make it a reality.
Absolutely, exactly. Part of it is exactly challenging that conventional wisdom, all the things that you've been taught, and how things work, and just to rethink it. And by the way, I think this is probably a good opportunity, because what we're talking about right now, it sounds all rosy, it sounds all easy. But I know that you have a balanced perspective. I've seen some of your material, so I think that maybe now is a good time also to talk about the fact that there's a grind to it. It's not all easy. Life is hard, and I know that you have that nice balance, which I try to include in everything that I do. So why don't you talk a bit about the hardships and the struggles along the way?
Yeah, I have an issue with the word balance, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
I wanted to get to that too.
I've seen some of the posts around that. But look, I put a post out today on LinkedIn that was exactly about this, that life isn't always fun and games. It's not always roses. And look, I remember the amount of times that I would, and I'm not afraid to admit this, cry myself to sleep thinking, how am I going to make this work? I'd walked away from a corporate job, a high-paid job as a commercial negotiation consultant. All my friends and family, aside from my wife and kids, were telling me to go back and get a normal job and have a normal career like normal people do, the conventional life. And I would cry myself to sleep because I was pushing a business and it wasn't working. I wasn't getting traction. I wasn't getting sales. I wasn't generating any income. And it was incredibly demoralizing. I would spend all day questioning what the heck I was doing. Why had I walked away from this other life, and why had I put my family under more stress and pressure for something that was impossible? So I was falling into the trap that I was trying to help people from solving. But look, sleepless nights crying, going, how am I going to make this work? Nights thinking, how am I going to pay the bills? How are we going to pay next month's rent? How are we going to pay the school fees? How are we going to pay for petrol in the car? I've been there, and it's not even a distant reality for me. It's recent, like it's within the last 2 or 3 years where I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't borrow any more money off the in-laws. I can't borrow any more money off the bank. It's got to the point where, wow, maxed out both credit cards. How do I pay this week's or this month's expenses? And it's not all fun and games, and it's damn hard, but it's not complex. It really is simple. It's stripping away all the unnecessary, getting really crystal clear on what you want, really discovering who you are, because we all have superpowers, right? And I know that you've spoken to Kurt Mercadante recently, who's a superstar client of mine. I'm not afraid to admit it. I love working with Kurt. He's done amazing things. But it's discovering our superpowers and learning how to use them, because everyone has them, right? Everyone has them. But when we learn how to use them and how to apply them to the world, then suddenly life becomes, I wouldn't say easier, but it becomes simpler. And we start to make progress. Like, I got coaches on board that would hold me accountable, because I would make all the excuses in the world as to why it couldn't happen. Oh, it's too hard. Maybe I'll just go back to the old job. Maybe I wasn't destined to do this. Maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. All the excuses that come out. And I've been there and I've done it. And I think that's why I'm in a position to be able to help other dads, because I know what it feels like when you think that there's no alternative. And it isn't fun and games. Even now, there's times when you go, really? The self-doubt kicks in and you go, really? This is all just getting a little bit too hard. Maybe I should go back to the easy life. And then you give yourself a metaphorical slap and you go, it was that easy life that caused the regret, the frustration, the weight gain, the unhappiness, the lack of fulfillment, and all those things. And you remind yourself of what life was like. And then I remind myself that I'm sitting here in the southwest of France living my dream. And you go, pull your head in, Fraser. Just relentless pursuit of it, And the word grind, I think, sometimes conjures up images of long hours and constant sacrifice and compromise. And I'm not big on that, but I am big on working hard and doing purposeful work to get you to the outcome. And yes, it may mean some late nights. It may mean some other things, but it's all about purposeful action, not just actions for action's sake, right? Because that just wastes time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think right now, certainly in my stage of my career, in my agency that I started, it's still very young. I am working very long hours, but I think the main thing is that it doesn't feel like work a lot of the time, because
you're loving it, right? Because
I'm loving it, because I'm focused on it, because I find myself doing things that I am in flow when doing them. So it's actually it's the passage of time. It's not until I complete the task that I'm at that I realize, oh, I just pulled an all-nighter and I didn't even I was completely oblivious to it. And so part of it, I think, is just that. The more that you are living that purposeful life, that with a clear vision, then from there it just doesn't feel like work anymore.
Look, you nailed it. Look, I refer back to a Sir Richard Branson quote, and he goes, work plus play equals living. And that's what I base a lot of what I do. It's when you integrate work, home, and play into this one whole thing that we call life, it means you no longer have to balance. You no longer have to take from one to give to the other, because that's not sustainable, and it very rarely works. But when you integrate it all into one and it becomes your life and it's all what you're trying to achieve, and there's many parts that play within that, that's when you truly stop working in that traditional sense. Because I'm the same as you. It doesn't feel like work. I get to have conversations with people like you. I get to work with people like Kurt. I get to have fun and see amazing things happen around me, some of which are a result of things I've done, some of which I'm just fortunate enough to watch, right? So it's, you get to see it, and it doesn't feel like work. It feels like life. And that's to me the whole point, because then you're not drawing a line and going, now I have to go off to work. It's like, now I have to go off and do these other tasks, which I also love doing. And you get excited by it. And your kids see that excitement, and you know that in 10, 15, 20 years time, where they're in the same position as you, they're going to know, hey, you can actually do something you love and make it all work as well. So I'm going to go and do something I love, whether it be a ballet dancer, an NBA superstar, or a doctor, or whatever it may be. It doesn't matter as long as you love what you do, right?
Yeah. So, man, there's so many things that I want to sort of almost pick apart out of that we've been talking about there. But here's the funny thing, by the way. So, you mentioned the fact that I had that interview with Kurt. I had set that up before I'd even encountered you. The video that I definitely had seen, it was weird because I saw a video that you posted about work-life balance, that pushback against work-life balance, and I loved it because guilty as charged. I guess I'm still using the word. It definitely challenged my thinking about that. I still use that language, but again, I love it when I see something like that challenges my thinking about something. So I was already like, oh, okay, this guy's interesting. Maybe he'd be a fun person to interview. And then somebody I knew said, well, you should interview Fraser. And so I'd set up the interview with you before I'd even interviewed Kurt, and Kurt told me that you were his mentor. So here's my question, because I am so anti kind of magical thinking, right? Like I'm definitely into mindset, but I'm very focused on practical mindset things, habits, those kinds of and really changing your thought patterns. I've studied psychology a bit, so I understand a bit about the sort of neuroplasticity and how we can actually change the way that our attitudes and therefore our outcomes. But I guess here's my question is, as much as I am, try to be that practical, sometimes I feel like, man, it's like the universe is guiding me. Is it the universe, or is it the algorithms that are just sort of bringing me with the like-minded people, or is it some combination of both? Like, what's going on?
Well, we're going to go really deep here, aren't we? Look, it's a great question. Look, the universe is clearly a weird and wonderful and powerful place, and it brings people into our path. And what I truly believe is that when we have a vision, our why, our purpose, that we articulate, that we share, what happens is people are attracted to that. And so the people that mention you to me are people that I've talked to about visions, I've talked about theirs, I've shared mine, and there's been an alignment. We've gone, yeah, wow, totally believe in what you're doing. And suddenly you start sharing that with other people and you start passing it on. And we're starting to see a movement of vision-led people, and LinkedIn is a fantastic platform for this, because there's so many people. It's no longer a job website, right? It's no longer a job platform. It's a platform for people to share living.
It's becoming a growth platform. Absolutely.
Completely. So I'm a believer that when you put your vision out there to the universe, you share it with all and sundry, and you're unapologetically you attract like-minded people to you. And it's that coaching mindset. You can see barriers or you can see opportunities. And what you do is, when you get into that mindset, you start seeing opportunities. So you start seeing people in front of you that you didn't see 6 weeks ago, that you didn't see 2 years ago. And suddenly these people keep coming to you. I totally get where you're coming from. Just over the last couple of weeks, these people that have come to me and said, I'd love to have you on my podcast because someone else has mentioned something to them. And it's like, wow. And you start researching them like I did with you, and you go, wow, this person's really aligned with where I'm trying to do. They're doing things differently. They're trying to break conventional wisdom. They're trying to do things their way and build the life they want. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It's spooky. What stardust has been sprinkled on to make this happen? Yeah. But I guess it doesn't matter, right? As long as it keeps happening.
It doesn't matter. Yeah, and it can't just be the algorithm, because again, then the algorithm didn't make you make that video saying, you know, that work-life balance is an urban myth. That was your words. That was off, you know, from your, completely from yourself, and it struck me, and I was like, yeah, this is interesting. So yeah, you're right. Whether it's the reason why, I don't know. And by the way, what I will do now, just as you know, because of the sort of constant alignment of like-mindedness, I'm going to throw the invite out there. Anybody who thinks differently, who's opposed to what I'm doing and saying, reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you too, because I really do believe too that, you know, there's something to learn from everybody. Right?
Oh, completely. And it's all about learning. And look, I don't agree with a lot of people whose posts I comment on, with a lot of people I'm engaged with, but their opinions are completely valid to them, and I like to debate with them. I don't like it when it gets personal, and that annoys me. But when we can go, hang on, this is what I believe and why. Tell me what it is you believe, because like you, I learn and grow. I spent the last 3 or 4 years trying to work on work-life balance because I thought that was the answer. Reading Sir Richard Branson's second autobiography and reading some of his quotes, I went, hang on a minute, he's got it right. He's blending work and play and calling it living. Boom, light bulb went off, and it's like, that's what I'm all about. So it's not to say there's anything wrong with work-life balance. It's just that my thinking has changed from there based on an idea that someone else had. It's not my idea. It was probably, it wasn't even Sir Richard Branson's. It was probably him sharing and crystallizing something in simple words that he'd learned from his own experiences. So yeah, I totally agree. That's how we learn, right? When people are pushing and challenging us and ultimately helping us to become the best versions of us, which is what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm going to raise the same quote I brought up when I was talking with Kurt, and it's this Carl Jung, who I love because some of his readings, I have trouble wrapping my head around. The guy is deep as hell. But the one quote that just it just hit me, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around, is this idea that people don't have ideas, ideas have people. And it's like, yeah, exactly. Like, again, like, because this goes, what I was talking with him really was this idea. Well, it's actually, you know, because I keep saying, you know, I've seen this now. There is this new economy of authenticity. That's what I call it now. This is the new economy. And it really is. And I really encourage, you know, any businesses that aren't kind of catching on to this, then you might be still stuck in that industrial age mindset. This is the information age. Things are going fast, and I think exactly like what I'm just feeling. It's like, this is just my small little contribution into the meta conversation that's going on. Going back to Jung, right? He's like the sort of universal consciousness. I think that's always been there's a reality to that, and somehow the technology is bringing that out to the front. It's now
enabling it, right?
It's enabling it. Yeah. Exactly.
Totally. Look at. It's basically, it's when we share our visions and we get them out there and we realize that they're so aligned. So you end up having this vision-led movement, which is the idea leading the people, and the people are the foot soldiers underneath that are implementing it in their own way. You know, you via marketing, me via coaching people, Kurt via coaching people, you know, whatever it may be, educators and all that light. It's those people that are then turning that idea into a reality in their particular field of expertise. And you're right, technology's enabled it. You know, 15 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to have this conversation. We would have had to send, you know, the old 5-word email. Geez, I am old. You know, university, when I think I handwrote my first 2 years worth of essays at university in the late 90s, because our university had 10 computers for, you know, 15,000 students. So, and I wasn't going to line up to use that with someone else. But you think of how far we've come. Yeah. Now that you and I can have this real-time conversation, we can align our visions and go, well, how can we help each other reach more people? How can we help more people have the epiphanies that we've had and change their lives? And that's pretty magical, right? That's pretty special.
It's very amazing. And when you assume, like, again, like, think about like Moore's law, which is, again, that technology kind of advances exponentially. Given how much we've seen, it's just almost impossible for me to properly imagine what the future looks like. But certainly this pattern, this trend, for me, certainly bodes well for the future. It speaks to a future of people being able to live productive lives that are fulfilling, meaningful, and true to what their own passions are. And I think it's a great thing. And I hope more people hear this. I hope more people come on board. I hope businesses are able to incorporate that. I think that's the big sort of
Yeah.
challenge for them is, you know, these big giant ships, and it's a little hard to you know, turn the ship when you're that big an organization. But as a small company, as an individual, you're nimble, you're free.
You're dynamic.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah.
But you really crystallize it then brilliantly, and I'm going to quote that at some later date with clients because it was golden. But essentially, it's about being able to do what you want and making it matter, making it count, making a difference in the world. Like for so long, we've been too scared to say, I want to change the world. And when I first met Kurt, we delved down, we were talking about it, and he said, Fraser, I want to change the world. And I thought, fantastic. He didn't want to change the world, so everyone said, Kurt, you're phenomenal, I praise you, and you're the, you know, you're the savior, and you're amazing. He wanted to change the world because he sees some problems in the world that he wants to fix. Whether he gets credit for it or not is not important. He just wants to generate the change, right? And when we have people starting to admit that, because that's what drove my journey, I always felt as though there was a burning that I was supposed to change the world, you know, and whether it's just one person's life, it doesn't matter. It's still changing the world, right? It doesn't have to be grandiose. It doesn't have to be massive. It's just about that constant and relentless desire to change. And I'm just working on an online course at the moment, and the first step in it is encouraging people to think about what they would like written in their obituary. What is it you want to be remembered for? What is the impact of the change that you want to be remembered for? Because it's none of this, oh, he was a nice person. Because yes, we all want to be good people and we all want to add value to those around us, but surely we want to make an impact. We want to make a change, whether it's enabling or empowering other people to create new possible, whether it's our kids going on to live impactful lives and changing the world, whatever it may be. You should feel no guilt about wanting something that's significant and that really matters, right?
No, absolutely, bang on. I mean, what's interesting with Kurt certainly is that desire to change the world clearly came, you know, his article, I don't know if you read his article about the passing of his father. I mean, it was such a beautiful article. But you know, for him, and I think this is where I certainly relate to it, is you know, it's a legacy to live up to. And I certainly feel that because I know my family's history. I know many of their accomplishments. You know, both my grandparents on my father's side worked in the Underground Railroad during the Second World War, fighting homes for Jews. On my mom's side, I know like my great grandfather, in fact, was the consulate general to Canada. He got kicked out from South Africa. He got sort of booted out. He was in the government. He got booted out because he was opposed to apartheid. So, and I think the thing is this, and this is one message that I certainly have, because sometimes people look around the world today and they're like, oh, look at this technology. Look what it's doing to our kids. Look what it's doing. Like they see all the negatives. Yeah. And what I really want to emphasize for people is this is, if you take a bigger step back and you look at the broad history of humanity at large, what is actually normal is death, disease, famine, and war, right? What we have enjoyed in at least, you know, here in the West and in many parts of the world is unusual, is outstanding, is amazing. And if you look at this old video Hans Rosling did, where he took just health and wealth over 200 years, right, where there was only sort of the Dutch and the English sort of up in the healthy, wealthy quadrant, and everybody else was down. And if you look over the course of 200 years, there is tremendous progress. So I think clearly the one message that I just want to tell is, one, appreciate how amazing this is, what the opportunity is, and two, don't chip away at it. I think that's certainly something where I align with Kurt on is there is this sort of chipping away, as if at the institutions that so many of our forefathers and foremothers have worked tirelessly, struggled to achieve. And those things can be torn down overnight, and they take so long to rebuild. So I think there's a matter of appreciating what we have, embracing it, and then exactly now, and what do you do with it? You have almost an obligation, as far as I'm concerned.
No, we do. We have an obligation to make it count, to make it matter. Yeah. All the hard work that's gone on, whether it be Martin Luther King or Nelson Mandela or Mahatma Gandhi or whatever else, and you know, your own example of your family that have influenced that. Like, if we don't make that count, if we don't then change and constantly improve what it is we're doing, then it's all for nothing. You
That's
know,
right.
and it's that legacy thing you talk about. It's like, I want to build a legacy, not so everyone goes, it's Fraser Cameron's legacy, but so that my kids get to continue to build on that and the next generation get to build on it again. So we see this consistent growth. You're right. With modern day technology, we hear about all the bad things, but we don't like to focus on all the massive changes and improvement that's gone on. The fact that a smaller percentage of the society is struggling for food and shelter and everything else. Yes, there's still millions of people, if not billions of people, but it's improving, right? And we've got to keep, like I say, keep chipping it away at it, keep actually adding value and keep improving and enhancing that and pushing organizations to improve, to enhance, pushing individuals to go out there and do something phenomenal, whatever it may be, and constantly improve. Let's not rest on the laurels. Let's make sure that all the forefathers and foremothers that did amazing things was worthwhile. All the sacrifices that they made, let's make them count now.
Yeah.
We're in a golden age to make the change.
We are. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, exactly like that. Yeah, it is such a golden age. I think part of the big problem, and this is where I'm in a way very happy to see the shift away from traditional media, because the problem, I think, is that, you know, some of the problems that we see, it's not so much that there is this rise of violence or this rise of you know, pedophilia or anything like look at all these other like terrible things. I don't think it's so much that those things are on the rise. I think it's just that traditional media has become so sensational. They just love, and so they focus on all the negatives all the time. But unfortunately, there's this alternative media, people like ourselves, just going out, and people are gravitating towards that. And the fact that people are gravitating towards it, I think, tells you something.
Oh, totally. We've now got a choice of what media we can consume. We can listen to the media that's telling us the bad news and all the bad things that are going on, which is no different than the bad things that used to go on. It's just now available for more people to consume, right? It's more readily available. You think back to the people during World War II that used to go to the movie cinemas to watch something that was happening in the war 2 months before. And now we see real-time images. We get to mourn with you when there's killings in your country, or we get to mourn with someone over there when something happens there. It's all real time, right? But you're right, there's a choice. I was on a podcast with a guy called Mark Metry, who does the Humans 2.0 podcast, and the guy's a fascinating guy. He's got virtual reality companies. He's looking at different ways to bring education to kids via virtual reality, that we can suddenly start to give them what they need and what they need to thrive and prosper in this modern day, rather than what they need to thrive and prosper in an industrial revolution outcome, and all these different things. There's amazing things out there that if you make the choice to go and look for it, there's so much there, right? And so all those excuses you have to stay stuck suddenly disappear if you just put the effort in to find out, because there's so many stories of people that have done amazing things from nothing. You know, the Gandhis and the Martin Luther Kings of the 21st century. There's so many of them out there. So, you know, so Richard Branson's an example of one. You know, not that he came from absolutely nothing, but he came from not much. And he generated huge things, and he shows that you can have it all, that you can have a great life where you enjoy lots of time with your family, where you do adventures, and when you make an impact on the business world. I mean, he can do it. And this is a guy that's dyslexic and, you know, and has had more failures than he's had successes, but the failures gave him the impetus, gave him the growth, gave him the learnings to make the successes truly count.
Yeah, no, look, I agree wholeheartedly. There is no such thing in a way as mine. And the way I look at it, there's no such thing as a failure. It's just learning. A failure is learning. There's an opportunity in that. And I agree with what you're saying, that there's just no excuse anymore. I mean, there is more computational power in this little device here than there was during the NASA Apollo missions, right?
Exactly. And that took up warehouses full, right? And this is something that we can hold in our hand.
Yeah. No, I mean, exactly. Well, that was, you know, I had the benefit of when I was a child. My father worked at a computer company. And so I remember walking into those big, giant mainframe, the thing took up the whole ring. And that now the computational power of what was in that little room, that big, giant gymnasium room, is probably what is in one of these little musical cards that you open up and it does a little jingle. Like it's crazy. Right?
It's crazy. And I talk to my parents who still don't truly understand what I do. You have clients all around the world. And I'm like, yeah, I've got clients in North America. I've got clients in Europe. I've got clients in Australasia. And I'm like, it doesn't matter where they are, as long as they can jump onto Wi-Fi and we can have a...
Yeah.
Damn you, Internet!
We're back. It's a little choppy all of a sudden.
Just... just as we talk about technology. Yeah, like, I mean, the technology is there that we can converse and we can interact with people all over the world. You know, like we can learn from people, we can engage with people. So we do live in a borderless society. Yes, you can't always go into every country, but you can converse with someone in almost any country. You know, it's like, and that's a golden opportunity. It's not an obstacle. It's not a barrier. It's an opportunity.
Oh, totally. I love it. I love speaking with, I had a couple of conversations with this gentleman, Bob Lowe, in Malaysia, right? And it was great. He got to inform me because, I mean, I there's, just, obviously what people talk about, the sort of surface level differences and being more of, our society in the West being much more sort of individual focused, theirs being more community focused. But he was, it's just fascinating to really speak to someone on the ground and to hear him speak about how much diversity just within Malaysia or within Singapore, within China. I mean, it's enormous. You cannot compare Beijing to the rural parts of China, and it's a mistake of us, I think, in the West to just lump it all in as one thing. It's not.
Yeah, totally. And that's exciting though, because suddenly our access to different ways of thinking, to different belief systems, the different approaches to life is that much more available.
Oh, I'll figure some way. I'll figure out. This has been outstanding, man. I've really enjoyed this conversation so much. Thanks so much for spending some time with me and having this conversation. I think what the message that you are teaching people, and obviously, Kurt has been influenced by that. Clearly that I'm aligned with it. I agree with it. And I hope this is just one more little step in getting that message out there and helping people. Any last sort of thoughts or advice for people?
Look, my biggest piece of advice is just, if you're struggling, just reach out and ask for help. There's so many resources out there, and it doesn't necessarily mean engaging a coach. You don't have to pay me for me to share things with you, for me to help you. Just engage. For me to help 1 million dads, I'm not going to be able to do it all with paid coaching. There's going to be other ways, but just there's so many people out there like Kurt, like yourself, who have got so much to share. And sometimes all you need is just a jolt in the right direction to really start making that change. And when you actually approach these people, you realize how approachable they are. You realize how human they are. You realize their story's full of trauma, challenge, barriers as well. So just reach out and ask for help, because the more people we can get actually living the life that they want, the more that we'll inspire more and more people to do it. And it's that domino effect, So it's just literally ask for help. Don't ever be too proud to ask for help, because for me, it's a sign of strength to ask for help, not a sign of weakness. And I was too stubborn for too long, which kept me stuck for too long. When I finally got over myself and asked for help, boom.
Yeah, no, look, you're bang on. I mean, how often have you ever asked for help and somebody been like, no, I'm not helping you? I mean, and it boils down to, again, getting out of that transactional mentality of, it's all just about that versus relationships. Like, it doesn't take much to just be to ask for help and to offer help, No,
Completely. And I now find myself surrounded with people just like you that I come into contact with that have aligned visions, that are exciting, full of energy and wanting to change the world. So you want to help. You don't even need to be asked for help. It's like, how can I help you? How can I add value to your journey? What can I do to make you more impactful? And so you find out, you get these all the time, and that's fantastic, because that's how movements, that's how revolutions occur. And that's what's happening here. We're the revolution of value and idea-led people, which is exactly what you referred to before from Carl Jung. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. So we've got to embrace it, right?
Well, look, it would just like hearing you speak, the passion with which you speak, and the mission itself, which I think is a wonderful, great, positive mission. So I'll put it out there right now. If there's any way I can help, let me know.
And I'm sure you and I will be in touch over the coming few days after this conversation, and just to talk about what we can do to help each other, because there's clearly alignment, and the more we bound together, it's that we are stronger together. And it's a fantastic statement. We are stronger together. And when we help each other, we stop ourselves from having to fall over and get back up again, but we help each other over those speed bumps. So definitely, this is not the first time we're going to be having a conversation.
I hope not.
I'm 100% certain of that. And just want to say thank you so much for inviting me on here. I've had an absolute blast, and it's been the fastest 40 odd minutes of my day. It's just zoomed by. I've had an absolute ball. So thank you so much.
Oh man, thank you as well. It's been a real pleasure. And exactly that last comment that you said, I've said that is our mission. Rising tides lifts all ships. So yeah, thanks so much for coming on. Can't wait to continue the conversation for sure. This has been fun.
Awesome. Thank you.